people coming.
Okay, we're at the Legacy Learning Loop, which is at the Pecos Legacy Park.
Across the wash. This is one of 14 interpretive signs that Project Green, Friends of Pittman Wash, has installed on our Legacy Learning Loop Trail. The first sign that we come to, walking counterclockwise on this loop, is white bursage. It's one of the hallmarks. It's one of two hallmarks of the Mojave Desert, together with the creosote. So here you see the small shrub to the right. That's the white bursage, and the larger shrub to the left is creosote. The creosote is in full bloom at this time of the year. We're doing this walk on May 1st, 2020, and creosote are covered with yellow blooms. Am I supposed to get close to the mic? Am I supposed to speak into a mic, Karen? Pardon. Am I supposed to speak into a mic? Where's the mic? So as you can see with the Legacy Learning Loop, as is true of all of our trails, volunteers have lined the trails to define them with rocks. This This is our second interpretive sign, walking counterclockwise on the Legacy Learning Loop near Pecos Legacy Park. This is a sign for creosote bush. Again, you can see it's covered in yellow blooms at this time of the year. And it's one of the two hallmarks of the Mojave Desert. Our third interpretive sign, coming up here on the left, is an interpretive sign that refers to a geological feature rather than plants. Most of our interpretive signs refer to plants, and it's our interpretive sign for desert varnish. That's these black rocks that you can see all over the Mojave Desert. These rocks are most likely washed down from Black Mountain. So the exposed surface of the rock has been covered with a dark coating of desert varnish due to high temperatures and limited rainfall. We are walking east on the Legacy Learning Loop. We started at Pecos Legacy Park. So all of our other trails are down in the wash. This is our only trail that's above the wash on a terrace above Pittman Wash. Pittman Wash lies immediately to our south, and we're walking parallel to it at this point. And we'll get a close-up look of the wash in just a moment. Here we have two interpretive signs side by side. Again, this is the Mojave Desert hallmarks. We had looked at separate signs back at the beginning of our walk, and here they are side by side. The white bursage to the left and the creosote to the right. They are seen often side by side throughout the Mojave Desert. And nearby that, right next to it, we have another geological feature that we're pointing out down in the wash, and that's caliche. It's a natural concrete like layer, and it is in fact sometimes used to make concrete. So this is a point. This is a point at which the bed of the wash exposes a mass of concrete in front of us. That's why we decided to put our caliche interpretive sign here. Caliche comes from the Latin word calx, C-A-L-X, which means lime. So this is the point at which the trail comes the closest to the wash, right here. Again, we're walking roughly parallel to it at this point. Here we are, still close to the water channel of Pittman Wash. This interpretive sign describes a wash terrace. That's the surface that we're walking on right now. Could you pan to the terrace? And the Legacy Learning Loop occurs on this terrace. The wash obviously cut from the north bank over there where the houses are, being shown right now, to the south bank. You can see on the north bank that's a natural bank, and on the south bank that's a man-made bank to protect the residential area from the water channel. We don't have an interpretive sign here, but this is a Pima ratani. We first discovered it on Earth Day 10 years ago in full bloom in April. This is just still got a bit of bloom there, but it's mostly gone by. We'll talk more about it when we get to an interpretive sign further up the trail. Here's a flower. So now we're at the point where our loop curves back. We've walked about a quarter of a mile maybe from Pecos Legacy Park, and now the trail is, or the loop is turning to the north and then looping back west. That's Pittman Wash to the east of us, flowing toward Green Valley. You can see the man-made bank on the south, as well as the north at this point. So the vegetation is completely different here, as you may have noticed, from our network of trails between Green Valley and Valley Verde. There we have lots of desert willow and catclaw acacia, cottonwood and so on, trees in addition to shrubs. Here we have catclaw trees, such as the one we're showing here at our interpretive sign. It's a bit off in the distance. At the foot of the bank. It's just beginning to leaf out, so it looks gray. Basically, catclaw are the last to leaf out and the last to lose their leaves. So the wash looks green when the catclaw are leafed out, and that's between April or May through, I'd say, November, December. Otherwise, once they've dropped their leaves, the wash then looks gray because all we see are the catclaw branches. So that's one of the few trees that we have over here on the Legacy Learning Loop. As you may notice, we've got lots and lots of shrubs. Again, because we're up on the terrace above the wall. is just a stunning display of yellow on the creosotes that we're walking through at this time of the year. Again, this is May 1st, 2020. I want to do a close-up. Here's a close-up of creosote blooms, and typically we find them covered with bees. We're not seeing as many bees as we have in years past, but we still do see bees. So as far as the eye can see in either direction, we're basically looking at creosote shrubs of different shapes and sizes, mixed in with an occasional white birch sage. We have a few different species coming up in just a moment. So this is the Pima, the purple heather, or the Pima ratani. I'm not quite sure about the pronunciation. Ratani. And this is the plant that we found in full bloom on Earth Day. So that would have been probably the fourth Saturday in April. We've been doing having community volunteer days on Earth Day for at least a decade. Anyway, this is where we first saw the Pima ratani, or the purple heather. And notice how it is very close to the white birch sage. That's because it's parasitic in nature, and it often grows in close proximity to other plants so as to tap their roots for nutrients and water. And so we see a display of that close proximity here. We built to our left, we built a switchback up the side of the north bank toward the residential area, and that was to encourage people to use our trail. When we first came here years ago, again this was at least 10 years ago that we first worked over here, this area was just covered with trash. I still see a little bit, but we've removed a whole lot of trash from this area. And again, we've tried to encourage the residents to use our trail and be educated by our signs and appreciate what's here, rather than use the wash as an area to trash. Coming up, we have a couple examples of cacti. And again, we don't see these on our trails. Our network of trails that is built along the water channel between Green Valley Parkway and Valley Verde. So these cacti are plants that we see just here on this raised terrace. So the first of the two cacti that we find here is the pencil Choya cactus, and it gets its name from the pencil-like, the very narrow pencil-like branches. And you can see the lengthy white thorns as well. Like the thorns can grow to be about 2 inches long. And across the way, just a few feet to the west, we have our other species of cactus that we've defined with an interpretive sign, silver Choya cactus. It might get as high as 2 feet in diameter, as high as 2 feet and 2 feet in diameter. And you can see this one is clustered right around another specimen of white bursage. Its many inch-long thorns give the silver Choya, which is also known as the golden Choya, a fuzzy appearance, and from a distance it can look as though it's in bloom with the sun shining on the white thorns. So again, we're walking west, back toward the beginning of the loop, toward Pecos. Green Valley Parkway is behind us, about a mile. The traffic noise that you will hear on the mic is from Pecos. Next we have coming up here another geological interpretive sign, desert pavement. It describes the undisturbed rocks that are in such close proximity that they look like a cobblestone street. So this is the same kinds of rocks that we talked about earlier that are characterized by desert varnish, darkness on the exposed surfaces, those surfaces that are exposed to wind and water. But this has to do with the proximity of the rocks and how close together they are. There's a lot more detailed information on our interpretive sign. Now we're walking up to an overlook area. Above the terrace, which in turn is above the water channel of Pittman Wash. So it's quite a beautiful view from up here. And as you'll see in a moment, we have another wash terrace interpretive sign here. describing this particular geological feature. So, from this point at the north end of the terrace, overlooking the terrace below us, and Pittman Wash Trail with lots of walkers and bikers, and then the residential units beyond them, and beyond the residential units and the irrigated trees, you can see Black Mountain. That's where Pittman Wash originates. For millennia, water has been flowing from the Black Mountain down into the valley, generally northwesterly direction in Pittman Wash. There are other washes, of course, but this is one of the major washes in the city of Henderson. It flows, it does a big U-turn around the area, the general area of I-215, the I-215 freeway and Eastern, and then makes its way east toward the Colorado River, now Lake Mead, and it has done for centuries. So that's where Pittman Wash originates, right up there. The last interpretive sign that we'll look at is one called Volcanic Rock, and we'll talk a little bit more about the rocks that have moved down all the way from Black Mountain to this location. Again, these rock line trails, the interpretive signs, the directional signposts, that's the wooden signpost that you see. All of this work has been done by hundreds of volunteers. Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout troops, etc. So these rock line trails here at the Legacy Learning Loop, over at Arroyo Grande, between Arroyo Grande Boulevard and the Union Pacific Railroad, and mostly the entire network of miles of trails between Green Valley Parkway and Valley Verde Boulevard. They've been built by hundreds and hundreds of volunteers, in addition to members of Project Green, Friends of Pittman Wash. They've removed trash, they've lined our trails with rocks, they've installed benches or rest areas. They've installed these wooden directional signposts. They've installed interpretive signs. Removed invasive plant species, tamarisk and others. Planted native plant species. Pruned branches from our trail. These are the kinds of things that volunteer groups and individuals have accomplished over the years since Project Green, Friends of Pittman Wash came into being in 2002. So we've been working on enhancing these open spaces for residents' enjoyment of nature for nearly 2 decades. We just did a U-turn near Pecos, and we are headed back east again toward the kiosk and the bench. And we're coming up on our last interpretive sign in a bit. Again, the one called Volcanic Rock. So our interpretive sign gives the information and a close-up photo of a rock with holes in it, and we place that here, that sign here, because we've got this entire raised area of the terrace covered with volcanic rock. And maybe its most distinguishing characteristic is that it's got holes in it. That's how we know that it came from Black Mountain, that these rocks were all washed out from Black Mountain at some point in the distant past. They're rounded because they're water washed. And we can see some creosote bushes growing among them at this point, as there are all over the terrace. So the holes in the rocks, the volcanic rocks, are caused by magma that, when it reaches the surface, we end up with these air holes in the surface of the rocks. Okay, so we've done the complete loop. We're back to our kiosk. Somebody hanging upside down. Want to take a picture of that? Talk. So here's the beginning and the end of the Legacy Learning Loop. Down the concrete steps, across the wash, and up the concrete steps, and across this Pittman Wash trail, right here at the north end of the park. And what you see in front of you is Pecos Legacy Park. So that's a good place to park your car if you're driving here rather than walking here, to walk on the Legacy Learning Loop.